Welcome to my film review of Tolkien. Apologies if the sound isn't its usual quality, but I am actually driving at the moment for this one. I've got to get back for the, not going to lie, for the NBA finals. So yeah, no time to spare today, unfortunately, so I'm doing it while moving. But hopefully the sound quality is still decent enough not to spoil your enjoyment. So Tolkien, as in J.R.R. Tolkien, as in the guy who brought us Lord of the Rings and of course The Hobbit. So, you know, to me, he's a god. He has given us the greatest story ever told, and Peter Jackson very kindly put that into the greatest movie ever made. So, cards on the table. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I'm a Lord of the Rings geek. You know, I'm obsessed. I'm an obsessed Lord of the Rings fan. It all begun from a guy that I used to work with. He started telling me about it, and it became, Lord of the Rings became the first book in my life I've ever read outside of school for pleasure, you know? And to this day, it's still the only book I've ever read. I am not a book person, hence I'm a movie, I'm a film obsessed guy. That's why I'm doing these reviews. That's why I have a pass at Cineworld, so I can see as many movies as possible. But yet, nevertheless, I loved Lord of the Rings that much that I read the book, and it was hard. But anyway, I digress. All I wanted to do was make you understand where I'm coming from with this review. I am a huge Lord of the Rings fan. For Christmas every year, when the new Lord of the Rings movie came out on DVD, the extended version with all of the making of extra features, it was a 4-disc special. That was, for me, the most excited I've ever been about a Christmas present since I was a kid, you know. I was an adult when these books were coming, when these DVDs were coming out, and I used to get so excited at Christmas. I couldn't wait to watch the extended version and get that excited every time there was a new scene, and I would watch the extra credits and the extra features, and it would just make me so sad that, you know, I'm just so jealous that I didn't get to be part of that incredible family experience of making these amazing movies. You know, I loved watching them, but it also made me so sad. I just wanted to be, I was so jealous, you know. I would have loved to have been one of the Hobbits or any one of the guys that got to take part in this movie, in the Lord of the Rings movies. And that leads me on to the fact that as a obsessed Lord of the Rings fan, it won't surprise you to know that I've read the forewords and the Silmarillion and stuff like that, and learn a little bit about Tolkien and who J.R.R. Tolkien was. So what I'm getting at is, before I watched this movie, I kind of knew his story anyway. Not in great detail, but I knew the gist. I'm not going to say what that is, because this review is also for people who may know nothing about Tolkien, and the key point of my reviews is to not give anything away about the movie. So I knew when the movie was going to be set. I knew what horrendously tragic events were taking place during the time, and I understood that, wow, no wonder this guy Tolkien created such a dark world in The Lord of the Rings, you know, because the influences he went through in his life. Now, he would say that, you know, that these writings in his book weren't affected by what he went through in his private life, but all I can say is watch this movie, see what he went through, particularly as a child, and just think, wow, you know, this guy was influenced significantly, you know, in your key time in life when you are the most influenceable, whatever the word is, you know. So this guy, you know, he's had quite some life. It's unbelievable. And I could not wait. When I saw the trailer for this movie, after like seconds into the trailer, I was like, this is J.R.R. Tolkien. this is J.R.R. Tolkien. Oh my God, they're making a movie about J.R.R. Tolkien. I was so excited. It's unbelievable. Honestly, I can't explain how excited I was when I saw the trailer for this movie. So, you know, I didn't need to. I was going to go and see this movie, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there equally like me, huge Lord of the Rings fans, who would go and see this movie regardless of whether I give it a good review right now or not. You were going to go and see this movie because this is right up your street. And yeah, this is what I need to discuss, is the two potential audiences for this movie. Because if, like me, you're an obsessed Lord of the Rings freak, you're going to go to this movie, you're going to love this movie. Incidentally, I would probably give it an 8 out of 10, which might surprise you. Like, why am I giving it a 10 out of 10? There was moments when I thought I was maybe going to give this a 10 out of 10, but it wasn't as wholly fulfilling as what I was possibly expecting. I guess my criticism would be, although 8 out of 10 is still a bloody good review, but my criticism would be, it wasn't on long enough. You know, the Lord of the Rings movies, they're all on for over 3 hours. And the people that are going to go and see Tolkien are the kind of people that are going to have gone and watched Lord of the Rings and sat for over 3 hours. So why not make the movie about Tolkien 3 hours? You know your audience can sit through that kind of a movie because they've done it 3 times with the Lord of the Rings movies. So for me, I wanted more detail, I wanted it to last longer, and it feels like what they did was they paced it in such a way that it would appeal to the masses. So if you're not a massive Lord of the Rings geek, like for instance, if they made a movie on, what's she called, who did Harry Potter? You know who I mean, the Harry Potter lady, right? If they did a movie on her, and it was 2 hours, I'd probably go and see it. Although I couldn't give a rat's about Harry Potter. Not a huge fan of the movies, never going to read the books, not in a million years, you know, but I absolutely respect what a talented writer she is. So if they made a short-ish movie about her, I'd go and see it. And I think that's exactly the thought process that they've engaged with this Tolkien. They've thought, right, we're not just going to appeal to the super geeks that want to go and watch a 3-hour movie about a person, because we'll never get enough people to make this worthwhile. We want to appeal to the masses. And I think it feels very much like that's what they've done, which is okay, but that's why I'm giving it an 8 out of 10 and not possibly a 10 out of 10. You know, there could have been a 10 out of 10 review, as crazy as that sounds. So for me, I quite like the pace of it, but then it continued at that pace, and I was like, okay, so I like the initial pace. It's got off to a moving start. Okay, here we are. You know, he's a kid. Start him off as a kid. You know, and the pace was encouraging. That you thought, okay, there's not a chance this is going to get boring. This is, you know, going to be, you know, a good pace, a good action. You know, it's not going to get too drawn out. But to be honest, it could have done, and it should have done. So much happens in this guy's life that 2 hours just isn't enough. I mean, it could and should have been longer. That's ultimately my criticism. It wasn't even 2 hours, actually. It was 1 hour and... No, sorry, it was 112 minutes. So it was 8 minutes off being a 2-hour movie. So it wasn't even a 2-hour movie. It went really fast, really enjoyed it, and obviously you're watching this movie looking for the links to Lord of the Rings, and they make sure they put them in there for you. I mean, you know, you can't miss them, they are in your face, but they're putting into the movie what you might be thinking in your head. And that's a shame in some ways, because you don't want the picture to be painted for you. You want to watch the story yourself and get the little snippets of clues and think, oh, could that have been that, and could that have been that? But they take away the could and just blatantly paint the picture of what it was, which he's okay, but I wanted to kind of be a little bit more in wonder and like, could that be that? Could that be that? So it was a little bit painting the picture for you too much. I think, like Mark Kermode would say, you don't want a movie to tell you how the character's feeling, you want the character to show you how they're feeling. And this was very much like they were just telling you, this is the crack here. But that was okay. And then there were parts where, even though they were blatantly spelling out what was what, the way it linked into what was going on in his life and in his surroundings, it was pretty cool. It worked. There's one particular scene, which I think you'll know what I mean, where it's almost a daydream, all of a sudden becomes reality, and it's like, oh, whoa, and that's a really good scene, the way that works. So in some instances, the way they do that really works, but for a lot of the time, it would have been nice to have been trying to use your own imagination. And I guess also, like, I wanted more instances where there were clues. It was like storyline, and then in your face, this is what influenced that, and then storyline. And there weren't any breadcrumbs for you to follow yourself. It was either they're telling you this is what influenced that, or just this is what happened when he was at school, sort of thing. And it was like there wasn't any element of you having your own breadcrumbs to follow, if that makes sense. So a little bit unsatisfying in that regard. But let's get on to the story as a whole and who this is for. I mean, I came away, it was one of those movies where when the movie ends, you just want to sit in your seat, head down almost, and just ponder and just think, and feel quite emotional, and process your thoughts. So it was very powerful in that regard. And make sure you've got your attention at the end, because at the very end of the movie, there's lines come up on screen, where it tells you a few key facts, because obviously it's a true story. So it's one of those instances where at the end of the movie, they fill you in on a few key facts about maybe what happened after the movie, chronologically, sort of thing. So be switched on at the end. Make sure your eyes are on the screen, because there's several reels of text to read. So be sharp and be ready to take those in, because they're fascinating, very interesting. And equally, you may be wondering, like me, maybe just like the Marvel movies, there'll be some kind of a very end sequence that maybe links towards Lord of the Rings or something in some way. And unfortunately there wasn't. I did stay to the very, very, very end, and there was absolutely nothing. So don't sweat about staying till the end. You're free to leave as soon as all the extra texts of information have finished. And I guess the other thing that I've just remembered that was a little bit disappointing was, I think maybe even people who aren't big Lord of the Rings fans will know that, the Hobbit movie was the Hobbit book was the first book that he wrote, and how it all began is depicted in the Hobbit movie itself. He's there, he's writing his book, and the very first words he writes of the book is, "In the hole, in the ground, lived a hobbit." So I think that's a well-known fact about how Tolkien first begun writing this story. And what this movie is obviously about is some of the influences and skills that he acquired to be able to create such an incredible universe. Because don't forget, for those of you that don't know, in the Lord of the Rings books, there is also these other books called the Silmarillion, and all these extra spin-off books where it's like, if you want to know more information about, say, Aragorn and Elwyn, can't even remember her name. There's like a background story to that. There's a whole book, there's a whole story background story to that. And it's the same with many, many elements of the Lord of the Rings universe. So the 3 Lord of the Rings movies and The Hobbit, that's like the tip of the iceberg of the universe that Tolkien created. He also created all these additional spin-off stories that just makes this the biggest universe, the biggest world ever created. It's a whole new world that he's created. And the key thing is, he created his own languages. I mean, what Harry Potter lady is doing is nothing compared to what J.R. Tolkien did. I mean, I like what she's doing, especially with the Fantastic Beasts. I love those movies. Those are more my cup of tea than the kiddie movies, like the Harry Potter ones. But what she's created, she's created some new animals. She's created she's made up some words for some new animals. I mean, I'm not dissing her or anything, but big deal. What Tolkien did, Tolkien created a whole new language, and several of them. He created several whole new languages, like Elvish language, and stuff like that. It's incredible, absolutely remarkable, just to create all these new languages. It's insane. You read them in the book and you think, did he just make up those few words for that element of the book? Just gibberish. No, when you see Elvish spoken and any other languages, Mordorian, whatever, spoken in the book, they're not just made up words for that particular part of the story. They are snippets from an actual, dictionary of an entire language. It's just utterly remarkable. This guy has created his entire life to tell in one story, and that story is ginormous. Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and all the extra Silmarillion stories and everything that go with it. It's a giant universe that Tolkien's created. And you understand from watching this movie just how and why he was able to create such a universe, because obviously this isn't something you just create overnight. This is the kind of thing that you have to kind of be thinking about for your whole life. So we get to see how that develops in his life. At what stage does he start thinking about it? And you'll see from the movie when it all kicks in, and it's not a surprise at all. It's like, well, obviously, and it just goes to show, if you want to make a person become an incredibly successful thing at one thing, if they obsess their whole life about it, they're probably going to become pretty incredible at it. And that's exactly what Tolkien has done, which you will see from the movie. My other criticism about the movie would be is once he starts finally writing his story, we don't see any more of his creative light bulb moments. Like I would have liked to have seen almost his whole adult life journey of writing the book, if that makes sense. I would have liked to have seen him sat going through the journey of creating The Hobbit, then creating The Lord of the Rings. Maybe a little bit about how the audience took to his first book, and then how the demand for a second book came about and stuff like that. So I would like to have seen all that, but that's probably just because I'm a super geek, I'm a super fan, and I never get bored of hearing about the story. I mean, I kind of know the story. That's the thing. I know what happens in later life. I mean, if you've got the audio book or the Lord of the Rings book and you listen to the foreword, Tolkien himself explains, the journey that he had from publishing his books and the response that he got and some of the criticisms that he got. So in all fairness, these things have already been answered. I guess I just want more. I just want more. I cannot get enough of this whole universe. So let's summarize, let's wrap it up, because if you've hung around this long, it's probably because you love Tolkien as much as me. So I should have really started with the next point that I'm going to say, which is, who is this movie for? So obviously, if you are a Tolkien super nut like me, you're going to go and see this movie. You're probably going to love every minute. and at the end you're probably just going to wish it was on longer. That's probably going to be your only criticism, I think. You know, I loved every minute. I was sat there with a smile on my face. I was so excited. I was like, just couldn't wait for the movie to start. I was like, yes, I'm here. This feels like an amazing moment in time, almost as special as the moment when you go to the cinema for the first time to watch one of the Lord of the Rings movies. You know to yourself, you know, this is it. I'm about to see something amazing that I've never seen before. Excuse me. And that can only happen, so, you know, once. So it was a very exciting moment to be doing that. It really was. And sorry, I forgot why I'm saying that. So, who is this for? Yes, it's for the super fans. But what if you're not a super fan? What if you just know what Lord of the Rings is and stuff like that? Well, I think, in all honesty, I wouldn't be surprised if I spoke to somebody who wasn't a Lord of the Rings super nut like me. If they came and said, that's the most boring, rubbish movie I've ever seen, I don't think I'd be surprised. Do not think I'd be surprised. I could totally understand if somebody said that was absolutely rubbish. That was just tedious, boring. I wouldn't be surprised. I really wouldn't. I would not blame you at all. So if you're not a Tolkien super fan, this might be one that you just want to wait and see it for free when it comes on TV. I'll be honest. There's no advantage in seeing this. Oh my God, what am I talking about? There is advantages to seeing this in the cinema. I mean, if you've seen the trailer, you'll have probably seen certain parts of the movie where they're set. And those are the parts of the movie that, while they don't necessarily last long, seeing them in the cinema is quite spectacular and breathtaking, and you're only going to get the most out of them seeing them in the cinema. I was sat right at the very front, so you felt like you were immersed in the world, in that scene with Tolkien, and it's goose pimple stuff. It's truly goose pimple stuff, you know? So in reality, you do really want to go and see this at the cinema, if you can. But I would urge that if you are not a huge Tolkien and Lord of the Rings fan, I wouldn't be surprised if you thought this was garbage. So the things that are there for you to look out for, all I would say is, for those of you who aren't super fans, watch the trailer. There'll be bits in the trailer that, if you are interested in that particular era of British life, British history, whatever you want to call it, then there's probably enough in there for you to come out thinking, okay, I've experienced that part of the story. Like, for instance, my dad, for instance, loves that genre of movie. He's got loads of books about that genre. You know what I'm talking about. So he would love watching the movie for that element of it. So if you're watch the trailer, you'll know what I'm talking about. And if that's of interest to you, then there's enough emotional, powerful stuff in this movie to make it worth watching from a movie from that genre point of view. Forget the fact that Tolkien's some famous guy. You could just watch the movie pretending, oh, well, who's this Tolkien? It doesn't matter, but it's an interesting life experience that he goes through. You could enjoy watching it from that point of view. And another element that I enjoyed it from was, obviously, it shows a lot of his life as a child, as a youngster, you know, school life and such like, and him hanging around with his mates and stuff. And I've got to be honest, I got a big kick out of that part of the storyline as well. It reminded me of being a young lad and hanging out with your mates and the fun, free time where you didn't have any worries and life was just so great and carefree. And you're with your mates, your band of brothers, you know, your best mates, you've all got each other's backs and you're there for each other and you hang out together all the time and you're like brothers, you're like family. It's great. So I got a big kick out of that element of the movie as well. Regardless of, you know, the fact that Tolkien is Tolkien, just watching those scenes were very enjoyable. My only criticism would be I would have liked to have seen more of the movie when it was a fully fledged adult. It was very much focused around his youth and his childhood era of his life. You know, for me, you could have gone right into his adult life and spent a lot more time there than what they actually did. So that would be a bit of criticism again on that element. But overall, you know, I'm giving this 8 out of 10, which I'm feeling a bit stingy giving it an 8 out of 10. But there it is, it's an 8 out of 10. It's the kind of movie that probably only really suits people that love Lord of the Rings, because a lot of the time, if you didn't know this was about Lord of the Rings, you'd be watching the movie going, what's this? What is this rubbish? What? This is so boring. What's it about? But because you know it's about Lord of the Rings, you're like, I wonder when it's going to link to this, and does it link to that, and did this influence that, and did it influence the other? And you're constantly thinking about, what does this mean, and where's this link up? And you know, for that reason, I loved it. It was great. It was like, every second was just brilliant and fascinating. It really was just brilliant from minute one. I loved it. I can't give this an 8 out of 10. This is a 9 out of 10. This is a 9 out of 10. I can't be so critical just because it was too short. This is a 9 out of 10. I really did love this movie, and I enjoyed, you know, the build-up linkage in your mind to what does this relate to in his future, and how does this shape him as a person. But my only gripe was, you know, it didn't go far enough into his life. That's probably the key summary. It didn't go far enough into his life. But nevertheless, great movie. Lord of the Rings fans only, I would suggest. Doesn't matter whereabouts you sit in the cinema. Not much of a popcorn muncher either, because there was plenty of quiet scenes. It's an emotional roller coaster journey of a movie. It really is. What this guy's been through is just remarkable. And do you know what? Who else this is for? If you're the kind of person who just likes to watch a movie about life, about people, about one man's life story, whether you're interested in Tolkien or not, and whether you're interested in Lord of the Rings or not, this is a remarkable story about one man's remarkable life. So if you like autobiographies and those kind of books, then this is the kind of, I love autobiographies. Those are the only books that I read for pleasure. You know, if I want a story, I watch a movie, but autobiographies, they don't do very many movies about them. Well, here they have. It's a movie that's an autobiography. So enjoy it. If you think that'll be your cup of tea, a fantastic depiction of one person's incredible life, remarkable life, unbelievable story, unbelievable journey, then this is the movie for you, whether you're a Lord of the Rings fan or not. So this does actually appeal to a lot more people than what I first thought. So I've really enjoyed talking about this. The reason why this is the longest film review I've ever done is because I'm such a hardcore Lord of the Rings fan, and this movie was just so great and so exciting for me. So I'll probably do a watered down brief version of this just to save people the chew of listening to this entire review. But if, like me, you're a huge fan, you'll probably enjoy listening to me rambling on about Tolkien. But otherwise, for everyone else, I'll do a shortened down review version of this, 5 minutes if I can. But anyway, thanks for listening. I've loved this movie. I hope you should go and see it. Let me know what you thought. How much of a hardcore fan are you? And why don't they still play Lord of the Rings at the cinema, like at least once a year? Let us go back and see it at the cinema once a year. Anyway, thanks for listening. See you on the next review. Really enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you and good night. See you on the next review. Bye bye.